Hi everybody, welcome back. The last part of this module is about making interactive plots. Interactivity is great. It's a lot of fun to build interactive plots. It's a lot of fun to interact with them, to use them, but it's also useful from the standpoint of everything we've been talking about in this module: accessibility, clarity, and engagement, because the user can basically see what's going on with the data by hovering over the geoms, more or less, the lines, the columns, the points, and that makes it obvious what is going on without having to add a whole lot of annotations and stuff like that. So I would say anytime you have an opportunity to do an interactive plot, if you're working in HTML and you have a few extra minutes at the end to make it interactive, then do that. The way that we're going to make our plots interactive is by using Plotly for R. We're going to load the Plotly library, and then we're going to use a function called ggplotly, and it really is as easy as that. There's some complications with respect to like source notes and that type of thing that we'll get into. But for the most part, it's super easy to make your plots interactive. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll just add a section here in our module, code along document. We'll call it interactivity, and then we'll say let's make our first interactive plot, and we'll add a code chunk, and we'll label it hash pipe label and first interactive plot, or whatever we want to call it. And then so this is super easy, it really is. So we're going to go library Plotly, load the Plotly library, and then call ggplotly, and then whatever object that we have our visualization stored in, we just put it in the parentheses here of the ggplotly function. And we built one earlier, remember, flfp_line for this set of visualizations up here, flfp line. So we'll just go ahead and use that for our first interactive Plotly plot. And there we go. We have our first interactive plot here, and notice that you can hover over the lines and it'll tell you what year you're on, what the value is, and what the line represents. So this is female labor force participation for the East Asia Pacific region. This is for Sub-Saharan Africa. We're in 1997. We can scroll over here, etc. Plus we still have the legend over here, actually. So it makes it super easy to see what's going on with your plot. And then you also have options here that come in this automatically loaded toolbar, which you can adjust. It's a lot of work to adjust it. We're not going to get into that here, but this is customizable. But you can download it now as a PNG. You can zoom in on it in different parts of the graph. Like we want to focus there. We can pan back out. Oh, we can pan over. I'm sorry. I think if we double click on it, yes, then we pan back out, and then we can use the pan function to move around. Zoom in, zoom out. Double click to go back to where we were. Auto scale, reset axes, etc. So you can play around with those features. But that's how you make a Plotly chart. It really is that easy. So let's go ahead and create a little space here. And we'll do another example. This time we're going to do an example where with a column chart where we adjust the tooltip. So this is called, let me run this again. So yeah, so this is called the tooltip here, where we see year, FLFP region, And in some cases, we may want to adjust that because either the information that's included automatically isn't enough, or because we want to customize how it looks. So let's go ahead and do that example. Let's do an example of a bar chart where we adjust the tooltip. Get our code chunk going here. Tooltip example, and let's go ahead and for this one we're going to use our FLFP region column chart, and let's just run it to see that it make sure it's everything looks good with it to start with. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I would prefer if it had a different theme, so let's do this. Okay, that looks good. And now let's go ahead and plotlify that. Okay. Right, okay, so this looks pretty good, but notice that here in the tooltip, it says reorder ISO 3C negative FLF. It's giving us basically our ggplot code for reordering the column chart according to levels of female labor force participation. All right, and that doesn't look too good, and it's not very informative for our users. So that's the part we're going to modify, and the way we do that is by changing the tooltip. So we go tooltip equals, and what we want it to say, we want to change it just to say, I think it would be enough if it just said region and female labor force participation. We don't need the reorder part at all, so we can just get rid of that. So we'll just specify what we do want, and then it'll drop that reorder command. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. And there we go, female labor force participation in region. Okay, so that looks much better. Now for this last example, what we're going to do is we're going to notice one thing that happens here. So in our original charts here, we had the source VDEM Institute. So Plotly sometimes drops annotations like this, or source notes, and so we have to find a way to add those back using Plotly code, which is different than ggplot code. Okay, it's a different syntax altogether. So if you were to build a Plotly chart from scratch and not just plotlify a ggplot chart, which we're doing here, you would have to learn more about Plotly syntax. Okay, that's beyond the scope of this course, although I want to show you a little bit of what that's about. Mainly it comes in when you want to have some sort of annotation floating around in your chart. Okay, so let's start a code chunk here. And we'll call this one scatter plotly. And we're going to take our wealth FLFP chart from before, and we're going to modify it a little bit to start with. We already have a color scheme, we already have a theme. One thing that we have to do is we have to include anything that we want to pass to Plotly in an aesthetics AES call, in this naming function AES. So for example, if in this next scatter plot we're going to build, we want to be able to hover over the points of it, and we want the points to be the country names. Okay, like when we hover over it, we want our tooltip to tell us which country we're hovering over. But Plotly won't import the country names unless we include that in essentially in our ggplot code. All right, so now we can go ahead and do our Plotly plot once we have that done. And we're going to use this new wealth underscore FLFP Plotly object. And we're going to specify what's in the tooltip. And the tooltip is going to be, you guessed it, country, female labor force participation, and GDP per capita. All right. Oh. And yes, I'm missing something here. Thought I was missing something, missing some parentheses. That all looks right. Let's see if it'll run. And there we go. Country. So that's a pretty nice interactive scatter plot right there that you're going to be able to build after this lesson. Okay, so last thing I want to show you is, okay, we don't have a source node here, and you know, maybe if we have this online in some sort of app, or maybe even just on our website, maybe if people are going to be downloading it as a PNG, we may want a watermark on it, some sort of notation saying where it came from, so that people, you know, give us credit for our visualization. So let's go ahead and build that in. We're going to build two annotations, and we go ahead and use a pipe operator to do that. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut and paste some stuff here and explain it to you in the interest of time, because it would take a long time to type all this out. Okay, this is one annotation. So first of all of this annotation goes in a list. So that's the first thing that's different about Plotly code. And so this whole thing, this whole annotation call is a list. And then also notice that if you want to do something with the font, that argument is also a list. So if you want to make this annotation, so we're going to have our text for this annotation is going to be source World Bank Development Indicators. And our font is going to be size 10. We're specifying we don't want an arrow with this annotation, so show arrow is false. And then we have to tell Plotly where to anchor this thing. So xref and yref refer to what is the reference point that you're using for the positioning of your annotation. Okay. And paper tells Plotly to use the plot area as the point of reference. Okay. The anchor, X anchor or Y anchor, tells it that you want to anchor. So X anchor can be left, right, or center. Y anchor can be top, bottom, or middle. And both of you can also use auto, in which case it'll choose the closest side. So if we have xref set to paper, x anchor set to right, and x equal to 1, then Plotly is going to align our annotation with the rightmost edge of the plot area. Okay. Similarly, if we have y anchor set to bottom and Y set to 1, then it's going to anchor a line. It's going to align our annotation with the bottom. And then you change these parameters based, to shift it left or right, up or down. The negative figure here means that we want it to be slightly below the plotting area on the y-axis. Okay, and then we also have this last parameter here, x shift and y shift. If we want to just shift a little bit based on pixels, left or right, up or down, we can use that to further control the location of our annotation. So just so you can see what I mean, let's go ahead and run this one. And there we have our source World Bank development indicators down here at the bottom of our plot. And let's add one more annotation here, just so we get the feel of it. And to do that, we're going to add another pipe operator here. Then I'm just going to cut and paste in some code. And this one is like I was saying, for example, if we want to, just make it clear to the user that this is our Plotly chart, and if you want to download it, fine. If you want to take a picture of it, fine, use it on your website. But then we always have the credit embedded in the chart. So this puts the text www.dataviz.gwu.rocks, which is the website for this course, and it puts it in. It's going to put it, right up here. So in addition to the size of the text, we're also controlling the color. We're going to make it gray. Show arrow false again, and then basically we're anchoring it to the top and the center. So for the X anchor, it's going to be from the top of the plotting area, and the center, and for the Y anchor, it's going to be anchored in the center. And then we're specifying X equals 0.5 and Y equals 1 to control the distance from the center and from the top. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that. There we go. So that's our interactive plot. And that brings us to the end of Module 2. And so, as is our custom, let's go ahead and render this whole module document so that we can see the fruits of our labor. Okay, so there we are. So that's our module document. So just reviewing what we did. First, we looked at the issue of color blindness, and we used CVD charts, the function CVD plot, to see what our plots look like to people who had color blindness. From there, we learned how to create a colorblind safe palette and how to use packages like Viridis and Color Brewer in order to create colorblind safe visualizations. And then from there, we talked about adding a theme to enhance the look or customize the look of our visualizations and to make them clearer in some cases. We talked about how to add annotations to communicate things about our data in the context of our charts. And then finally today, we focused on the issue of interactivity, and we learned how to make a nice interactive Plotly chart. And then we also talked about how to annotate the Plotly chart, because that could be an issue. If we just use the ggplotly function, sometimes it drops out some of our annotations and we need to add them back using Plotly code. Okay, so that's it. So now you have a really good understanding of accessibility and how to make your visualizations more engaging, clearer, and interactive. See you in the next module.